Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 2020 Uart meeting. This was, as with tradition, this is going to be our Uart Field Day meeting, although there's some caveats to that, because as everyone knows, the scope of the world has changed, and so has Field Day. And so we're going to talk about a bit on how Field Day has changed, and also if you want to do Field Day on your own for a change, or want to do it for the first time. Anyway, Morris, I'm going to wake you up, and how are you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm great, actually. Much better than I've been earlier in the day.
Okay. And Tom, introduce yourself, and you're going to be doing the feature presentation later.
Hi, I'm Tom, WA7ZRG, the Uart Club Secretary, and I volunteered after I got a little bit of a boost from Clint saying that he would help me. I will be presenting a few slides a little bit later in the program this evening on Field Day 2020. So as we all know, things have changed, and so we'll talk about a few of those items on our presentation this evening.
Okay, sounds good. Looks like we have 37 watching on the stream now. And if you are a New York member or a new visitor, please say something on the chat. We do see Gregory Scott, who says he's a new member of a club. No call sign. Maybe you might mention if you have one. But welcome, and welcome to everyone who's joining us online and when you play this back. Let's see. The next meeting online, probably, unless the world dramatically changes, will be this September meeting. As you recall, Uart does not have a meeting in July or August. Unfortunately, the steak fry, Uart steak fry, is not going to be held this year for reasons would be obvious. A large crowd, sort of a buffet style, and everything else, that just does not seem conducive to safety in the present world environment. But we'll try to figure something out. We're hoping to have it next year in 2021, and we'll try to reserve it as soon as we can, the space up in the spruces. Let's see. Morris, tell us about testing and a few other bits of the club business.
Well, testing is sort of one of those really difficult things. The W5YI group are doing some testing. You can get on their website, and not the W5YI, and I can't, if anybody can remember that website, please do so, because my memory doesn't go back to yesterday. Anyway, they are doing some in-person testing where they are stringently observing the 6-foot distancing and all of that kinds of stuff. So that makes the testing process last a bit longer than it used to. And fewer people can be tested at one time, obviously. Would you like me to talk about books at the same time, or not books, but classes?
Sure, why not?
We are learning how to do online teaching. I don't think that we're doing as good a job as we could do, but we're doing well enough that our students aren't flocking away from us in droves. And we're teaching a technician class online right now. This fall, in mid-September, we will start another online technician class and general class, unless some miracle happens and all of the medical experts are mistaken, and the coronavirus clears up and we'll be able to do our own in-person kind of class. That's the hope. Also, I'll be working with Ron Spears, K7RLS, we had an extra class underway at the time the coronavirus hits, and so we did not get to finish that class. So we're looking at maybe turning the small piece that wasn't already turned into an online presentation that could be used online, making that an online, and then finishing that extra course up starting in mid-September. At the same time, we'll be teaching the technician class and a general class. So if you're interested, if any of that made sense, which I'm not at all certain it did, if you're at all interested, you can contact me at my call sign, AD7SR, Alpha Delta 7 Sierra Romeo, at arrl.org. And if you're either interested or if you want to find out if you're interested or not, in other words, if you've got any questions, give me an email. If you try and telephone, if we don't recognize your phone number, we don't answer the phone, and we're not really good at listening to our messages. So by far the best method of communicating with me is by email.
I think you meant to say awrl.net, not org.
Thank you.
Yeah, repeat your email address again. I'll put it on the comment here in YouTube.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
All right. Once again, the email address, if you are interested in the online classes or real life classes when those happen again, is Alpha Delta 7 Sierra Romeo 87SR at awrl.net. Okay. Let's see. We've a few more comments here. Welcome to KJ70BM. Didn't see your name there. And also Jonathan, Kilo Juliet 8, Julia Delta Golf. And hi to Dick and Pat, who have joined us, made their presence known on the chat on YouTube. One thing that's worth noting too is this last week, the Utah Valley Amateur Radio Club held an online Zoom meeting. You can find their presence by Googling or rather searching on YouTube. And their guest was Riley Hollingsworth, being interviewed by our own Brett Sutherland. As you may know, for decades, the ARRL has had an official observer program where people would be sanctioned to sort of monitor the airwaves and make comments on people who are who have good operating practices, but also make notes and gather information about people who aren't being so nice and being such good amateur radio operators. About a year and a half or 2 years ago, the ARRL announced the change to that program where they discontinued the old official observer program and have come up with a new program, the name of which just escaped my brain. But anyway, the UVARC meeting, Utah Valley Amateur Radio Club meeting, has Riley Hollingsworth. Oh, what was it?
Volunteer monitors.
Volunteer monitors. That's right. Volunteer monitor program, which is a more official program where the ARRL works with the FCC to help gather information for both issuing kudos to people who are good operators and also gathering information on people and stations and activity that is not quite up to the spirit of amateur radio. So it's interesting viewing if you haven't caught that. Let's see here. It's one of the things that I was going to mention too, although this probably isn't the venue for it at the moment, is what's on your workbench. I would hope that with everybody stuck at home, a lot of projects have kind of piled up and a lot of things have been getting done. And if you have a few comments on something like that, make sure you put them in the notes and we'll see what we can come up with. And also, if there vaguely ham-related, make sure that you bring them for the October Uart meeting, which will be our homebrew night. However, that'll be done. We'll have to figure that one out. Anyway, let's see. See, KF7UUM and N7XHB, hello to you. Now, to get over toward the field day thing, as you probably have heard, Uart Field Day is officially not going to occur with Field Day as a club, per se. However, you are strongly encouraged to go out and about or stay at home and do your own field day activity. It's worth noting that if you, out of nostalgia, want to go up to the meadow up above Payson Lakes, you're welcome to do so. The club had a permit to go up there, but only because we need a permit for more than 30 or so people. But since that's not happening, if you want to go up there and hang out and set up your own antennas in the trees, we encourage you to do so, or anywhere else for that matter. Tom will discuss briefly how it is that you can operate your own field day and attribute some of your activity to the club of your choice, and we hope you choose our club. But the idea is to go out there and have fun. Tom, I guess we're getting to the point where we turn it over to you for the presentation.
So, Field Day. To do on Field Day, ARL Field Day 2020. This is a short presentation that I, Tom Kemlowski, and some assistance from Clint, K7OEI, is going to give me on this presentation here. The ARL Field Day is an annual event, and this year Field Day will be on June 27th and 28th. It's 2 days towards the last month, the last week of June. Typically, it's Saturday. It's a Saturday and Sunday, and over the last several years, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years, perhaps more, the Utah Amateur Radio Club has held their field days near Payson Lake, Utah. And there's a nice site up there. Hopefully, most of you have had a chance to go up there and see what it's like. It's a great place to go. You can camp up there, participate in the field day, and it's been quite successful. We've had a lot of fun up there. This first slide is kind of a long shot of Payson Lakes where we would normally meet. If you look kind of closely to the left, the photo that's that thumbnail-sized photo that's difficult to see perhaps, that's one of our larger antennas that we use at Field Day. It has a beam on top of it, and then the slide to the right of that is actually a little bit closer end of the same antenna, where you can see part of the trailer that it's attached to. It's a funny story about where that antenna came from. It was actually part of a communication tower that was put together when the Olympics was held in Utah, the Winter Olympics, and once the Olympics were completed, a lot of the cellular service companies that brought in, extra resources in order to provide cellular radio service had these surplus antenna towers, and they were designed to be mobile antenna towers, and so they didn't really have a use for it when they were completed, and so we made off with that. They gave us a pretty good deal on it, and we've been using that as an antenna system for our field day with some pretty. It's a nice system, and we've had some good success with it. Okay, so here's a couple of snapshots I wanted to include. I usually like to put in some photos if I can. The question here is, take a look at some of these pictures. If you can stick your face up close to the monitor, see if you can pick out anybody that you recognize. I can name a few of them there. I see Gordon there in the center of the photo towards the top, and I see a few other people that I know. There's Carl over there to the right, and Clint's in there somewhere. And so it's kind of fun to kind of reminisce and reflect back. There's a long history for Field Day, and it's sometimes fun to just go back and look at some of these old slides of what it was like and what we were doing. Okay, so as most of you are aware, unfortunately, UARC activities at Payson Lakes, Utah, are canceled this year. This is due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and there's just a lot of problems that we've thought about with this, and after much discussion at our May 21st UARC board meeting. And after assessing risks and the toll already sustained by members of our community, our ham community, the Utah Amateur Radio Club officers voted to cancel the Uart Field Day event scheduled for June 27th and 28th at Payson's Lake, Utah. Hopefully next year will be a real banner year for that. And so what I'm going to do, because of this cancellation, I'm going to talk about a few of the things that you ought to be thinking about, alternatives to try to salvage the day and to still have a lot of fun. Quite frankly, I think there's some real opportunities here that are going to work to our advantage if it's done right. There are some clubs here in Utah that are still planning to go out for field day. I've listed two of them here. One of them is the Utah Valley Amateur Radio Club. That's Uart down in the Utah County area. They've been holding for the last couple of years their field day at a location that they have close to Strawberry Reservoir. And so if you go down to this link that they've provided, if you go over to their website, they've got information on how to find their location and how to get up to their club for the field day event that they're going to have near Strawberry Reservoir. And so that might be one option that you'd want to consider if you want to get out for field day, if you want to take the chance of going out there and having some fun with the hams from Utah Valley. That might be one opportunity. If you're further to the north, it's my understanding that the Ogden Amateur Radio Club is also still planning to have their field day. Last year, it was at Marriott Park, which is close to I-15, just north of. I don't really know for sure. They still show a TBA on where they're going to hold the field day at. So this is another one of those. You need to hit their website. The link is shown here below to find out where they will be meeting if you decide you want to go there. And then thirdly, there's the American Radio Relay League has a locator, a field day locator map on their website that you can go to and then just put in your coordinates, and it kind of works a little bit like Google Earth. You can drop down and find a pin, and you'll see where field day events are still scheduled for. So that might be another way that you could locate clubs that are still thinking about doing a field day and getting out there. So those are a few resources for those of you that still want to get out and participate with a club at field day. All right. So due to the unique experience, or due to the unique situation presented this year, the ARL is encouraging clubs and individuals to consider different approaches, new approaches that are in line with the circumstances that we're working with. I think the ARL contest manager, Paul Berque, N1 SFE, said it well when he said, and I really like this. He says, field day is not about doing things the same way year after year. Use this year to develop and employ a new approach that is in line with the current circumstances. And I really take heart with that, because what that says to me is, you can go do it. It's a lot of fun. We've done it before, but use this year to actually try something different, try a different antenna, try doing it yourself. Some of us have maybe become a little complacent. You just go up there and you operate and you have a lot of fun doing it. Sometimes, you can kind of relearn a few things by trying to set it all up and do some of the things that normally you get some help with. So I like this suggestion that Paul has made, and I think we should all give that some consideration. Okay, so what to consider? Well, so the objective of field day is to contact as many stations as possible on nearly all of the bands that we have available to us. The 160, the 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10 meter HF bands are all fair game for field day, as well as all bands above 50 megahertz. And to learn to operate, and the idea, of course, the objective is to learn to operate in abnormal situations, not unlike the ones that we see now, and under less than optimal conditions. And that's the objective of field day. All modes are allowed so that you can operate sideband, CW, digital modes, any of the modes that are legal for us to operate. We can use those modes at field day. The ARL contest rules can be viewed if you want to see the particulars of the rules for this field day at this link that's shown here at arl.org, field day rules, and you can go through and read up on what you're supposed to be thinking about and what you're supposed to be doing at field day. And probably the biggest part, the most important part, and most of the hams that I've been around have never failed on this, is to make field day fun. And one way to do that is to include your family. So that's something to keep in mind, is that field day is really about doing these things to become proficient in amateur radio, but also to have a good time while you're doing it. Okay, so what to consider, what you might want to do if you choose that you don't want to try to go to a field day club event is to try to operate your own little mini field day. From your home, or perhaps you drive out to a location that you know of and you want to set up in the field someplace yourself and operate just as a single operator on field day. That is perfectly reasonable and it's perfectly allowable, and it's one of the things that I'm going to be doing, as a matter of fact. You can operate Class 1D, or that's one transmitter operating under Class D, which would just be your home station like you would any other day that you would operate as an amateur radio operator. Or you can operate 1E, which means you're on emergency power. The advantage there, of course, is you get to multiply your score and get a little more points for every contact that you make. So those are a couple of things to consider doing. And you would use your license and your call sign. And so you would, stay in the bands that you're licensed to use and follow the rules that the FCC has established for communicating. I've got a summary of the different different classes that we can typically operate at. Class A is for clubs. Class B is 1 or 2 persons portable. Class C is mobile. Class D is home stations. Class E is home stations, or even out in the field, I suppose, on emergency power. Usually when you're in the field, you've got an alternate source of power anyway. And then Class F would be your EOCs. Okay, so in order to make this more palatable and easier, because of the changes that we're under, normally the Class D privileges do not enable us to make contacts with other Class D stations. Those rules have been changed, and I'm going to read what's here. What the ARL is doing for this contest is, for this year only, is they're saying that for Field Day 2020, Class D stations may work all other Field Day stations, including other Class D stations, 4 points. Haven't been able to do that before, so that's great. That'll make it possible for anybody to participate in Field Day that has a station that they can use. And in addition, for 2020, an aggregate club score will be published, which will be the sum of all the individual entries indicating a special club. So what this means is that ordinarily, club names are only published in the results for Class A and Class F entries. But this year, participants from any class can optionally include a single club name with their submitted results to the ARL for Field Day, and then those points will count towards that club. So we're encouraging people that if you do a Field Day, a Class 1D or a 1E of your own, that you choose to indicate that Utah Amateur Radio Club is who you're affiliating with. And then Uart will get some recognition and some points from that. So that's something to definitely want to give some thought to doing. One other sidebar that I'll make here, 1 second here, excuse me. I think that this is going to be a phenomenal Field Day year. And the reason I say that is that normally we have a lot of clubs that go out and they draw a lot of hams, 50, 100 hams sometimes, and they all concentrate into maybe 3 or 4 stations that are operating. This year, a lot of those hams have been displaced, and they're going to put stations on the air themselves. So I think that we are going to have an absolute it's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. There are going to be a lot of stations that are operating field day this year, a lot of them. So I think there's going to be a really golden opportunity this year for anyone to really score well because of the number of stations that you'll be able to work without having to worry about duplications as much. There's going to be a lot of stations on the air. So keep that in mind as we get ready to get into field day here at the end of the month. Okay, so what to consider. Now, I talked a little bit with Clint about this. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to unfold. I'm going to kind of go quickly through this. Clint may be talking to us a little bit about a few ideas you could consider for how to set things up to do your own field day if you choose to do that. But I'm not going to get into any of the details on this slide. I'm going to move on to the next one. So what else should you consider? Well, computer and software is a biggie. But the good news there is that you don't really need a computer at all in order to operate a field day and to do your scoring and everything else, unless you're going to be operating some of the digital modes that we have with FLDigi or something like that, then you would need a computer. And paper logs are acceptable, so you can keep track of your score, and you can do it that way if you prefer. Myself, I did a little bit of checking into, and listed here you'll see that there's several companies that offer software that you can just download onto your computer, and you can use it for a very reasonable fee. And what's nice about that is that it will do your logging for you. It'll do your dupe checks so that you don't have to worry about searching through the log to see if you've already worked that contact before. It does all that automatically. And so for less than $10 in many cases, you can get some mighty decent software to make you into a contester, basically. So that might be something else that you'd want to take advantage of. There's FDlog, F3FJP makes some software. N1MM Plus is another one, and there's some links shown on this page on how you can locate those softwares if you choose to do it that way, and perhaps install those and use those on your computer. So at the conclusion of your field day, you'll need to submit your results to the ARL. And so over here on the left side of the screen here, that's what a typical form looks like that you'd be submitting. There's actually two pieces to this. I'm only showing the first page that you would fill out and submit to the ARL. Entries must be postmarked for submission by July 28th. So you've got about a month to get your form filled out once you've completed field day. And what the ARL recommends, and what I would probably do, is they've got an app that you can do your submission with, and then you don't even have to do the paperwork and filling out boxes and finding a postage stamp. You can do your submission right online. So that's probably something that you'd want to give some thought to. That's how I'm planning on doing it, by the way. All right, so typical a few more slides that I wanted to show with photos. Again, here's a few of the types of activities from our field days. There's stuff associated with sitting and relaxing, of course. There's the setting up. If you get out into the field where the temperatures are, could be a lot better than down here in the valley, that's definitely worth doing. But it is some work, and so you'll notice in some of these photos here, you'll see people kind of going around, tightening bolts, attaching masts, putting antennas together, and then there's also the loading and the unloading of things. I mean, that's a big part of what Uart does. We have to gather all of our gear together, load it into a trailer, haul it up to Payson Lake, break it all down again, haul it back, put it into storage. That can be a little bit more work than what you'd first think. But, those are typical activities that go on at field day. And during field day, there's some of the activities, of course, that are a lot more fun. Things like, slide there, getting in line to have a barbecue, which is something that Uart usually does, a free barbecue. And we've had some pretty decent ones over the last several years. So a few pictures of that going on. And, there's going to be kids up there. There's going to be dogs running around barking. It's just a real fun bash. I've really enjoyed field day. We usually pack up the grandkids and head on up to field day each year and have a lot of fun with that. So, so I'm getting towards the end of my slide stack here. So here's a few of my final thoughts. ARL Field Day this may be the year that you decide to participate solo, or with other members of your household. Perhaps the focus of your activity this year can be to expand your knowledge base and experiment with a new mode or a new band that you want to operate in that you've never operated on before. If you're a mentor to a newer ham, Field Day can be the opportunity for you to share some of your knowledge with them and for you to expand your own operating horizons. This might be the year to leave your Field Day comfort zone, to try something new, and to have a lot of fun. So down at the bottom, I have a link to the ARL site. It's just arl.org/field day. They have got all sorts of really good resources. You've got to take a look at that if you haven't already done it. Some good ideas on how to have a lot of fun at Field Day. And I highly recommend to all of you that you get out there and give it a shot, one way or the other. And my final slide here, here's what you do at Field Day. It goes something like this. CQ Field Day, CQ Field Day, CQ Field Day. This is WA7ZRG, Whiskey Alpha 7, Zulu Radio Golf, calling CQ Field Day. There will then be an exchange, and then you say, please copy 1 Echo Uniform Tango, QSL. And then when they say, gotcha, please copy 1 Echo, could be anything, could be Charlie Alpha. You write that down, and then you say, good contact 73. And you move on to the next one. And it's a lot of fun. You get learn a lot of new skills. And I highly advise that you give it a shot this year as a single operator station, if at all possible.
Okay. Hey, Tom, a few questions from out there in the field on the comment section. Jonathan asks, it mentions that he's studying for the general now, but he wonders, what is the point of Field Day? I mean, why was Field Day conceived? Why do we do it? Why would we want to do it? You might cover that.
Sure. Field Day has actually been around. I've got a few years behind the belt. I've been a ham radio operator for more than 50 years. And my first field days were actually before I even had a license. When I was a boy, ARL was having field days. And it was so much fun for me to go up into the mountains with my father and with his ham buddies, and families, and we would have a field day. And the idea is to get out of the typical ham station that you might have put together, to muster your skills and your abilities to demonstrate that you can quickly and easily and adequately put together a communication station and conduct traffic to communicate with other stations all over the United States and all over the world, for that matter. So it's staying current, and it's staying proficient at being able to communicate and to do things under adverse conditions, and that's kind of the field part of it. Get out of your comfort zone and do it someplace different than where you would normally be set up. Because when things are not working right, oftentimes you need to move in order to get into a safe place or get into a location where you can keep going. And communication is paramount when you're in that situation. So that's part of the idea is to train you to do those sorts of things.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. A lot of people get into ham radio ostensibly for emergency communications and monitoring. I mean, emergency communications and things like that. And I see fewer good ways to do that than Field Day, because you were thrown out there in the field. And if you've never done this before, I think that's even a better reason to do your own Field Day, because you will quickly determine what works and what doesn't. Tom asked me to take a few words and take a moment and mention what it is, radios that you might use on Field Day. I would suggest you use the radio with which you are most familiar, because you should at least have that with you, because if you pick a radio you've never seen before, it can end up with endless frustration trying to figure out how to get it to do something you don't know how to do. And radios are more and more complicated than they ever have been. An older radio is actually pretty good for a field day, because it's very basic. Anyone can sit down in front of it, turn the knob, and push the button and make it go, and you don't get lost in menus if you're talking about running sideband or CW. And as far as antennas go, I would strongly suggest that if this is your first field day and first antenna, you go with the dipole, because they are almost foolproof. You just simply need to be able to read a tape measure and make wire connections. Get it up in the air at 15 feet at least, I would recommend. And one nice thing about a dipole too is that it's less likely to feed back RF into your radio gear and mess things up when you talk. If you're running a antenna like a end-fed half wave or a random wire, that can be a bit of a challenge. And considering that one of the aspects of field day is to get something in running quickly, it would be a good idea to have at least a minimal station you could set up with only the smallest amount of fuss and just get it working. And you can be pretty sure that a dipole antenna is a almost foolproof antenna that just simply works, and there's almost nothing simpler than it, and it works very well. As far as the bands operating on field day, your best bets are 20 and 40 meters, at least during the daytime. 40 meters at night, of course, and if you can put up a longer wire and get it higher up in the air, say 30 or 40 feet, 80 meters would be good. And if you do work at night on 80 meters, it'll certainly test your mettle on dealing with summer static that often occurs at the end of June when the lightning crashes from all over the northern hemisphere manage to find all their way to your antenna and your headphones, and make life interesting. I would let's see, and above all, and I already said this, if you've never done it before, that's a good reason as any to do it again. And Morris, I'm going to let you unmute yourself rather. I did have a question that came up with me. It turns out that Uart does have a station that does not require personal contact that may or may not be doing anything on field day. As people watching this may or may not know, Uart does have a fairly well-equipped station that's accessible via remote on the internet with a free program that down by Delta. And what do we suggest people do with that station during field day? I mean, first come, first served, or do we kind of want to request that somebody take the reins and have some sort of a field day station, unofficial one, or what do you suggest, Morris?
Well, I think that anybody that wants to get on and use it should do so. You have the ability to request that you transmit if somebody else is already using that station. It is a single resource that we have right now. We hope to have another one available soon. Another individual is putting a station up that we'll be able to use. But I don't think that we should, I don't see how we could restrict that to a single individual. And it seems to me like with that ability to ask for the reins, if you will, that's a way to do that. And they are absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, most welcome to use that station. What are your thoughts?
Well, I might mention that any Uart member with a general class or higher license is welcome to use the Leamington station. And Morris did bring up the fact that there's a second station, too, that may be available. Glenn, WA7X, has a cabin down in central Utah near Fairview that also has a remote station that is generally available to club members. Now, if you want to be able to use the station, you need to contact Morris and get his official blessing and all that, and he'll put you in touch with the information you need, tell you where the manual is to be found and all that. But I think that's an excellent idea. Go ahead, Morris.
What they need to do is that there's some instructions on the Uart website. They need to follow those instructions, and at the end of that, set of instructions, there's a link to sending the email and requesting permission to use the site.
That's right, of course. Yeah. And in fact, I will do that now. If you go to, let's see here. Here it is. If you go to the UARC webpage, on the left, you will see HF Remote down here about the middle. Click on that, and it'll bring you up to this page. And here you will see the guidelines for the using of the station. A remote station manual tell you exactly how to operate it, and also the quick reference guide. Now, you will need credentials to get into the station, and those are what you need to contact Morris about. And as mentioned, there are 2 stations, and if and it's possible that we could have somebody kind of acting as the go-between if we get a lot of interest. So, Morris, whom do you suggest people contact if they are interested in operating field day from a station remotely like this?
Well, you mean one of those 2 stations? Is that what you're talking about, or with their own station?
Well, one of those 2
station remotely.
Yeah, one of those 2 stations, particularly with respect to the club. They need to talk to you anyway to get it up and running. But supposing, I mean, how do you want to handle this? If somebody doesn't have a rig of their own or lives in a very noisy location but wants to get on the air on field day from a station that is much quieter and wants to use the UARC station specifically,
well,
some sort of clearinghouse, or is it a free-for-all, or what do you suggest?
Well, unfortunately, I don't see any other way than just sort of a free-for-all, first come, first served, and then, as I said, if you're the person that is currently operating the station and somebody else wants to use it, you can get a little notification that there's somebody waiting that would like to transmit. And I strongly suggest that if you're using the thing, then and somebody else wants it, let them take it, and then get back in the queue to use it again.
Okay, yeah. All right. Gary, let's see. Let's see. Connor Crum, I think, related to Gary somehow, asked the question, please explain field day rule changes for 2020, where home stations will get points for contacting with other home stations. That's a 1 delta. Tom, I guess you need to clarify that. That's normally been a no-no, that people sitting at home on commercial power previously could not talk to someone doing the same. But that is, for at least 2020, as far as we know, that's not the case, right?
Yeah, that's my understanding. The ARL for 2020 only has removed that restrictions. If you're operating Class D, then you can communicate with other Class Ds for a point, for score. And for that matter, all the classes can communicate amongst themselves, and you get points regardless of the pairing, whether it's a D with a D or a D with an E.
Okay. Okay. Well, that was suspected for a while, but I'm glad they made that change, because it certainly would have been frustrating for some people. Anyway, any other comments out there? I guess, Gary, you're going to list a link for the temporary rule waivers on field day, but we'll try to find those and make them available. I think it was in Tom's presentation too, where he mentioned that. Anyway, anything else you want to say about field day other than be safe and have fun, Tom?
No, that's pretty much it. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be operating Class 1D. I think I'd mentioned that. I'm hoping that many of you will be there too, and we'll get an opportunity to exchange our section number and our class that we're operating in, and score some points.
All right.
Clint?
Yes, Morris.
We might just as well go ahead and post the change to the rules on a York website.
Okay, that'd be, let's see. Let's,
those over to Gordon.
Yeah, let's task Gordon to do that. Make it readily available as a reminder what has changed this year.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't hear Gordon. We don't know for certain that he's actually going to be available to do that.
True. So,
but if he can't, we can get Gary to do it.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I think that about concludes the meeting here. What I will do right now is I will just to wrap things up, I will play an old video that was made about 20 years ago, montage of field day stuff. And when this program is re-edited for online, I will fix Tom's framing on his screen sharing and tack this video on the end of it. You can actually see this little video on the Uart page too. If you are watching this on YouTube, please click the subscribe button on the YouTube page. As you might notice, we have about 110 members now, and having more than 100 members has allowed us to shorten our URL for YouTube, so it actually has the Utah Amateur Radio Club in it. Anyway, with that, I will say good evening, and I will end the stream as soon as this little video clip ends, unless someone else has anything else to say from the club. Anyone?
Hang on, let me see. I was going to mention the date if we hadn't done it before. Okay, September 10th is our next official meeting.
Right. And
so we don't know whether it'll be online or not yet.
Expect it to be online, however, because I don't think
if it isn't.
I don't think there's going to be any magic that happens that suddenly gives everybody immunity to this thing anytime soon. So, anyway. All right.
I would also like to step in and remind those people who might want to go up to the Basin Lake site to do their own field day. Remember, you are not representing the club. The club is not responsible for anything that goes on up there. Just remember that, guys, and be safe. I mean, be really safe.
Well, you're not representing the club in any of your physical activities, but in terms of your radio activities, you can accumulate your score towards the club score. Now, that's the change in the rules.
All right. Anyway, here's the short video. It'll look like a slideshow, but that's the way Zoom works. 7-3, and take care, everyone.
Copy Whiskey 7 Sierra Papa, Whiskey 7 Sierra.
CQ Field Day, Whiskey 7 Sugar Papa, CQ Field.